joining us this evening. I will call this meeting of East Helena Public Schools Board of Directors meeting into session. First item on the agenda is our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome all of you for joining us. Do appreciate your attendance. Before the board this evening, we have tonight's agenda. Are there any questions from the board on tonight's agenda? The only thing I'm going to ask is, Dan, do we have representatives from the FWP joining us this evening?
Not that I know of. We told them that we just present the letter of the request. Okay,
perfect. Otherwise, I was going to have that moved up to earlier in their new agenda. I don't see any new business. Okay, so seeing that, we'll go to hear the public. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on non-agenda items. If there are on the back of this evening's agenda, there are guidelines for addressing the board on such items. So if at this point anybody would like to address the board, this is their opportunity, and I invite them to do so.
I'd like to address the board.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Kate Johnson. I'm the teacher out here in East Helena. I asked for a little feedback from the staff about how our different spring breaks from Helena affected them. Here's what I learned. 30 staff members had parents complain that their traveling fun options were limited due to family members and or friends in the Helena district having different spring break. 24 staff members had parents complain that they couldn't find camps or childcare for their kids during our spring break. 4 staff members that have a child in daycare had his or her daycare closed during Helena's spring break, so that they were kind of stuck for the week after our spring break. And 3 staff members had to use leave this year because of the different spring breaks. It also needs to be noted that there were families in our district who had to take extra time off work for childcare because they have a few East Helena students who are in daycare that closed with the Helena spring break, so they had our spring break for their kids who are in the school, and then another week they had to find childcare. And we found that many parents were confused to find out about the different spring breaks, which I know we gave them a lot of notice. We talked about it 2 years ago at the school board. And it seemed to happen because East Helena Public Schools has always taken traditionally matched Helena spring break in consideration for parents. 2 years ago, the school board decided to stop prioritizing the convenience of that scheduling, and because of this, our students had less opportunities in camps, travel plans, sleepovers, and other opportunities, and families were left to deal with the hardship of extra childcare. East Helena has always been proud, and rightly so. We've done amazing things. We've had early childhood way before a lot of school districts. We built our own high school, which we should be proud of. We're very proud that our school board has handled things fiscally, that we are not in dire situations every year needing to run levies. But we need to be careful that our pride that we feel about being different than Helena doesn't cause hardships for our families.
Thank you.
Kate, your survey results, do you have those in any kind of a format that would easily be shared, like by emailing them to trustees and to Mr. Condon, who's the chairperson of the calendar committee?
Sure. Yeah, it's just a Google form.
I just couldn't write it down, so I could keep up.
That's right, yeah.
Are there any other individuals that would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on now to reports. And the first item under reports is our student report. And Brooke, I'll let you lead that one off.
Okay, so we have our track senior night is tomorrow night as it can be against Helena Height and Capitol Height and Butte Central. Skills USA finished their season last week with some people winning in the heavyweight equipment operator, with first place being Cooper Larson, second place being Carson Bushnell, and in technical drafting, second place was Dylan Berger, and in team welding fabrication, they got third place, which is Eli Russell, Cooper Larson, and Carson Bushnell. Our student advisor group is putting together a fundraiser for Helena Food Share, and they're running a hockey basketball game this Thursday. Maddie Ratzlaff won prom queen, and Walker Young won prom king. Mr. Ridgway was won Southeast Conference Coach of the Year, and boys basketball had their first appearance at state. Slade Olson and Talon Thatcher winning honorable mention all-conference, and DeAndre Ellis getting first team all-conference and all-state. And that's all I have.
And I think we have those folks with us tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
Cue the video.
I got a bit of a glare here. Help me out, Trish.
Right there.
Sure.
Okay, come on, guys. I don't think it has sound.
It doesn't have sound, that's okay. Just
Classic.
First time seeing this.
I haven't seen I'll pump in some sound for you.
What's this one?
Okay, so this is, I'm Ty Ridgway, I'm the head boys basketball coach here at East Town High School. So this is at divisionals. We had beaten Fergus the first game, lost to Billings Central the next night in the semifinals, and then had to play Havre at the next afternoon. Havre beat us earlier in the year by 16. Obviously, you know, they beat us in football. They've kind of been our nemesis. So I know the kids were excited to play Havre. So the score's tied, as you can see, 59-59, 3 seconds. The winner goes to state in this game. Loser goes home. So we'll just kind of.
For three!
That is awesome. Wow.
The first person I hugged was Cole Bass. I don't know why. He was the closest to me at the end of the baseline. And then I just danced around and pulled my hamstring hugging Slade. No, it was an exciting postseason. Obviously, 8 of the 12 guys are here tonight.
Can you introduce them for us?
They can introduce themselves. Go ahead.
I'm Jack Taylor. Talon Thatcher. Slade Olson.
Quan Gillespie, Chase Luthard,
DeAndre Taylor. Parker Taylor.
Andrew Maxis.
And Slade and Jack are big pieces of our puzzle this year that led us to state. There are 2 seniors that we had on the team this year. We've got Talon's a junior, Andrew's a junior, Parker's a sophomore, Chase is a sophomore, DeAndre's a junior, and Corin's a sophomore. So we still got a pretty young crew coming up next year. But again, these 2 were the big pieces that led us this year, our captains, and you know, without them, we wouldn't have gotten there. So we want to thank them. We had our banquet last night, so we got to celebrate our season and our seniors last night, which was great. These guys were just a joy to coach, as the whole program was. You know, our being a student athlete, our average GPA in the program this year was a 3.4 GPA, which was great. We had 8 academic all-state kids, 3 all-conference kids and an all-state. DeAndre was first team all-state, first team all-conference. Slade and Talon were honorable mention all-conference. That's the first time in our history we had 3 honorable or all-conference all-state. Obviously, the first time we've been to state ever in school history, which was great. Trying to think what else. We had won 5 games last year, won 11 this year. We were 3rd in the conference, which got us an automatic bid to the divisional tournament. You know, and these guys battled. It's extremely difficult, obviously, to get to divisionals and then obviously get to state and then succeed at state. And we were, you know, a couple minutes away from beating Ronan at state to advance. So I'm proud of these guys. You know, I thank you for having us tonight and appreciate you guys.
And we have
Appreciate these guys.
Conference Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Coaches.
Yeah.
Coaches.
Did you want to interview? You have assistant coaches here?
Yeah, Coach Ferris is back there. He's our Froshmore coach. Alex Johnson, I don't think Alex is here. He's our other Froshmore coach, and then Coach Thatcher's our JV coach. He was unable to be here tonight. So great coaching staff. You know, blessed to have them as part of our team. And again, these guys are amazing. We're going to miss these 2 seniors for sure. They're moving on to Dickinson State next year, and So whatever they're gonna do, they're gonna be successful at. So.
Thanks, you guys.
I got so excited. You know me in sports.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, next group, or do we have any others?
We'll go administrator reports.
Oh, I just wondered if there's any other students or any other teams we got. Okay, then we'll go on to our administrative reports, and we'll start with our little ones. And Brandon, let's go ahead and hear from Bobby Skate and for Prickly Pear.
All right, good evening. You have my report. A couple of cool things took place at Eastgate and Prickly Pear. We had the governor visit. Of course, at Prickly Pear, Dan and Scott got to join for him coming over and signing House Bill 15, so that was really cool. One additional thing that I did want to share was some behavior data. So historically, March has been a pretty difficult month for us, which is with office referrals. It's something that's come up in quite a few team meetings, teachers taking a look at the data, coming up with plans on how to address that. So I'm happy to report that this year, on average, over the past 3 years, we saw a 55% decrease in office referrals, which is huge. Less behaviors, increased instructions is really good news. So, any additional questions for Eastgate or Prickly Pear?
Board have any questions for Brandon? Okay, please, appreciate it. Gus?
All right, you guys have my board report. I just have one thing to add to it. We pushed parent-teacher conferences back significantly later in the school year this year than we've done in previous years. We just wanted to give it a shot because some of our staff felt that it was such a short period of time between the first round and the second round. And so I surveyed staff, and then I just had some informal conversations with parents in the hallways as I was passing through that night. And we had a pretty good majority of staff and parents who kind of liked it at this point in the school year. It showed a larger growth period from the first round to the second round. There was more conversation centered around that. And then some staff said that it kind of sets up that final quarter to finish out the school year on a high note. We just got some positive feedback, so I feel like if we can find a happy medium between late January, early February, and early April, maybe in mid-March, it might be the nice sweet spot for everybody. That was the big feedback, but I think overall it was really successful. And we had a lot of parents and staff walk out of the building, and it was daylight, so they kind of like that.
Not used to that at the end of COVID.
Exactly. So it was good. It was something to take into consideration. I think giving it a try this year was a success. So.
Okay, any questions for Gus?
No, but as a parent, it was nice not to have to skip from school to school all in one day or 2 days.
Yeah, I would second the timing. It was nice.
Good. There's 2 more.
There you go. Add that to your notes.
Two important ones.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments for Gus, we'll move on to the middle school, and Lindsay will tell us what's going on.
It was a quick month for us. We did have a dance. The kids had 11 days in their trimester 3 before we had our dance, and the rule is you can't have 2 write-ups or major write-up or no Fs, and I think it came real quick for them because we had a lot of kids in that came in and got their homework done really quick and then headed to a dance. So we're just gonna try to continue to do big checks on students to get them moving on their grades instead of hoping that they catch on. The 227 enrollment for 8th graders went out to state on why they want to go to the high school 227 and what that looks like for them. And as administrators and the teacher in the 227 will give our feedback of if we think they should start back into the school setting and then work their way in, because some kids were more successful in the school setting than the 227 side. And then our 6th and 7th graders will reapply. Well, not reapply, but state what worked well for them. And that's all.
Any questions for Lindsay? You mentioned 227 Academy and the transition from the middle school to the high school, and so what does the evaluation look like? Or how do you perceive that evaluation looking like if you start them off in the, going from the 227 in middle school into the traditional high school setting, and then the evaluation portion of it? Is it through the student, is it through the parent, is it through the school, is it through the administration?
It's through the school and the parents and the students, so we have meetings when it's not working. And what we started to do is, if it wasn't a great setting for them, we recently started to put them, merging them back into the EDMS, so they'll start going back to other classes. So they started going back to other classes to see, is this more successful for them? And then we reevaluate at the end of the year.
Okay. So just because a student wants to do it, doesn't necessarily guarantee that they are going to, that it's a collaborative conversation that you have with them.
Yeah, and some want to do it and then they get in there and realize like it's more self-driven and have to have that motivation to do so.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. There's no other questions, comments for Lindsay? Michael?
Yeah, just with the report that you guys have, something that kind of stuck out to me, I was really happy to see the number of out-of-school suspensions significantly down this month. Just something we try to avoid if we can, so it was great to see that that was down quite a bit, over half. Otherwise, I was just gonna mention that pretty much all the admin here went to Great Falls Monday, which is last week. Wednesday, up to Great Falls for Montana Safe Schools Conference, just kind of working with our SROs. Deputy Jeff Stoltz went up as well, and just worked on everything from how to work with our SROs when it's appropriate, how to successfully de-escalate students and everything like that. And I just gotta say, I think we're pretty lucky to have the SROs we have here, because we have pretty much everything they were talking about in that conference in place. So it was just reassuring to see.
Okay, cool. Any questions for Michael? Okay, let's go to the high school. Paul?
Yeah, okay, so you got the board report. I haven't got much else to say except for Thursday night at 6:30 is donkey basketball. We have 3 teams at the moment. We're short of 1 team. So, you know, board of trustees, they're really cool to have board of trustees. Against, we have the booster club team, we have a teacher team, and we've got a student team, which is the advisory board kids. So we're still hunting down for 1 more team to compete, which we'll do in the next couple of days. Yeah, so it's just a lot of fun. That's all I can say. It's a lot of fun, and obviously it's very good course.
I don't think I have any more years of eligibility left.
Dang it.
I believe Mark is the only former college basketball player here. Is that correct?
I still have several years left. I slowed down quite a bit. From the Dolphins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta negotiate your name, image, and likeness
That's right,
contract.
NIL contract. Paul, did you want to introduce Samantha?
Oh, yeah, sorry. In my board report, I talked in there about a grant that we just got, Advanced Agriculture grant, and this is Samantha Wigan, our agriculture teacher at the high school and the middle school. And I just thought she could talk a little bit about where the cash is coming from, where it's going, and what's going to happen in the future with this grant.
Yeah, perfect. So I applied for the Advancing Agriculture grant. I get to do that every 2 years, and essentially this year, since we are such a new chapter and a newer program, they just had me set some goals, which are going to be to gain some new students, specifically on the high school level, and then add some more resources to our program, which is where this grant funding is going to go. Classroom materials, and then things like a fridge that will help in our specimens for animal science, and then some cooking labs for meat science and floriculture and things like that. So should go to good use, and I'm excited to get some new materials into the high school classrooms.
Very good.
Great job.
Any questions for Paul or Samantha? Paul, I just had a quick one, and I don't know if it was you or Tricia, it was in your report, I guess, but you mentioned about the club level groups looking for, or having to take days off. And I'm just wondering, have you looked in how other schools are addressing those types of things on the club level?
No, I haven't, and, but it's really interesting that it really affects us, because we have a lot of kids that are doing lots and lots of different stuff in our school. So I've never seen it to that kind of extent before. So yeah, but certainly we'll be doing some research in other schools, sort of how they handle it. Because, you know, we've got some really high performing kids in other sports that we don't offer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lacrosse, ice hockey, just to think of two just off the top of my head. Skiing, gymnastics, just lots of stuff. I'm guessing possibly even track shooting at some stage, you know, because it's not an official sport. So I think, I just think it's something we need to sort of formalise in terms of how we sort of categorise that. And my personal feeling is, you know, if a kid's putting in a whole bunch of time into an activity which is actually helping them, then we should recognise it. But we'll have to sort of look at it a little bit more before we make any sort of determination there. Certainly any kids that, at the moment, what's happening is we are sending notices out to kids that are missing more than 10 days, for instance. And if they're in sport, it's like, we've already said to a few of them, it's just like, look, don't worry about this notice, we've got to send it to you, but we're kind of looking at something else here to sort of change the way we do things. It's more for the kids that actually just sit at home and play ball. That's what it's for. Anyway, yeah.
I just wonder when, you know, clubs are critical and crucial, and it's a good thing that we have those, but then there's the potential that you have a few of those students that utilize that as their academic career type of a thing, that, you know, the clubs are fun, the academics aren't quite as much.
Well, the work, the idea though is the same as it would be for if they were in a school activity. They would still get the same amount of time to complete from the teachers, but the same. They wouldn't be able to just say, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. It's exactly the same as the other kids. You get a couple of days to recover, to be able to sort of get that work back in. So they're still going to have to do the work. But at the moment, the way it's written, you know, once again, it's not accounted for, it's counted as an absence.
Yeah. Okay.
Scott,
Martin,
can I say one
please.
thing? So I would like to tell everybody, I had the opportunity to observe Ms. Wiggin at the state FFA convention 2 weeks ago, and all I can say is, like, I consider myself relatively energetic. I mean, I don't. And she was up earlier and went to bed later than every kid there for 4 days straight. I could not believe it. I came home utterly exhausted, and I can only imagine that she needed to go home. But did an extraordinarily good job and had a great relationship with kids, and was super. And just unbelievable staying power. I was just like, oh my God, I gotta go to bed. I don't know where these kids are. I'm going to bed. Super impressive.
So we're not gonna put you on the donkey basketball team, right? Any other questions for Paul?
No, but I wanted to say thank you to Samantha for
Yeah.
going above and beyond to about grants and making it happen.
Trish?
So we have my board report, couple of things that I just want to touch on. I did not, and I owe Paul an apology because I thought cell phones were going to be the death of me when the new cell phone policy went into play, and it has not. It's actually worked very well, to the point where the kids actually wrote us a note on our little principal banner they made for us that said, thank you for taking away cell phones. I was like, I'm gonna snap a picture of that and send it out to every high school kid's inbox. So cell phones, although we're just making sure that they're put away bell to bell, it's working for our kids, they're getting a ton of work done. Our biggest issue right now is attendance. And it's starting to get really nice outside, and kids are having a really hard time staying in class. So we are addressing that. All 4 of the in-school suspensions this month were related to kids skipping classes and getting caught. I would say the other thing too is our teachers warned everyone at the beginning of the year, once they hit those 10 unexcused absences, they don't have to give makeup work. And so a lot of kids are now realizing, oh man, I've already used my 10 days, I can't miss anymore, and they're starting to head into classes. But it's really difficult with the nice weather to keep our kids in classes and doing what they need to be doing. We still are down with in-school suspensions and out-of-school suspensions. And really that's just because we really feel if our kids are in the building, we want them in the building working on what they need to rather than suspending them from school. So we're working really hard on keeping that line with our kids.
Any questions, comments for Trish?
Yeah.
Looking at your breakdown here, it looks like the vaping and some of the other stuff is essentially, at least hasn't had enough to come into the pie chart. Is that true for this month?
Yes. Our cell phones that are connected to our vape detectors used to go off every 20, 35 seconds. So now they're down to once or twice, maybe a day. We also need to check this system to make sure that it's still working, but for the most part, we have very few vape issues in the building. Not to say that it's not happening, it's just not happening in our building, which is great. So, but no, we've got more cell phone. General inappropriate behavior is just a teacher writing up a student for misbehavior in a classroom. 90% of those are handled at the classroom level. I don't really have to do much, except for remind the kid to show up for lunch detention. But then that open defiance, getting into the threat intimidation, that's when it comes to me.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Okay. If there's no other questions for Trish, then we'll go on to Sean.
All right, so you guys have a report. I just want to congratulate Ty and DeAndre one more time. Put a great job. You know, all of our programs seem to be really on the right track, I think. You know, spring's going well. Baseball won 2 last week. And softball won last week. Track would go tomorrow, but they're competing very well. Tennis is competing very well. The other thing I want to do is just, with all these events that we have going on in our buildings, I think it's a shout out to our custodians who do a great job of coming in on weekends and making sure everything's clean and ready to go come Monday morning. So I think they do a great job.
Any questions for Sean? Okay, seeing none. Eric?
Good evening. You have my report. I only have 2 big ticket items from there. One of them, I was able to get an order of Chromebooks for next year, and it was perfect timing. I believe it was the day after the manufacturer decided they're not going to ship anymore until all this is sorted out, tariffs and everything. So got them in just in time. And the last few weeks I've been trialing out an antivirus. Ours is up in July. And the one that I trialed out, same protection, same everything essentially, and it's gonna have half the cost of what we're currently paying.
Any questions for Eric?
So we'll replace the Chromebooks pretty much 440 every year, which will be every 5 years for that device. It'll last for 5 years, we're replacing 440 every year. Out with the old and the new.
Yes, and the big issue is that after a certain amount of time, once they're out of updates, once they're no longer supported, they can't be used for testing any longer. So they have to be refreshed, unfortunately.
Okay, seeing none, I think that probably runs out the reports. Before we move on to it though, those of you that are standing in the back, if you want to, it'll be a little bit before we get to some of the things that are on the rest of the agenda. You're more than welcome to have a seat. I know it's crappy to just stand in the middle, and we're not gonna stare you down. But make yourself comfortable, please. I need a leader. There we go. I won't force you. That's not the intention. In addition to the trustees or the administration report, we got the trustees and committees report. I don't think any of the subcommittees met except for the infrastructure committee, which will be discussed under new business under which line? Unfinished business, item under 2. So other than that, that's the only subcommittees or committees of the board that have met. I was fortunate enough in mid-March to attend the COSBA National Conference in Atlanta. That was, I mean, this is the second time the COSBA's had their national conference, but you could genuinely see the improvements that were associated with that conference. They had some very good speakers, very energetic, a lot of energy that was going on in there. People that were participating in it, were very much engaged, and it was very exciting. And I left with a lot of neat ideas that I've been bouncing off of Dan, and hopefully we'll be able to, maybe if not incorporate them, at least maybe see if we can find areas of improvement in our own way of doing business. Got back on Sunday, and then on Tuesday morning, I spent another 3 days with the Montana School Boards Association doing strategic planning for it. And there wasn't a lot that came out of it, but most of it was generated from the lessons that were being learned through the legislature. And there were a lot of lessons learned, and, as you could probably read in the newspapers. So, but we have been working on a strategic plan similar to what we do, and it's always helpful to be able to review that on a regular basis. So, any questions on that, and or the, I guess we're going to discuss the committee later on. So, any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, then we'll go on to our strat planning and scanning for future needs.
And the district-wide infrastructure committee, this is bigger than the board committee, these are community representatives. It looks like we're gonna try and hold that meeting on May 1st. And I know Terrell has a conflict that night, but Stacy has attended those meetings as well, so she might be able to sit in for you. And on that night, we'll be asking for some reports from area realtors about growth, talking about developments. Hopefully we can get a city council member or the mayor there to update us about that and just kind of review the whole array of recommendations that came out of the SMA report, which was less than 2 years ago that we received that final report, so I feel like it's still pretty current. And I think that it'll be a good opportunity just for us to discuss where we're at with that process. So I'll be working on getting that invitation out tomorrow. That's really all I have. I guess the only other thing that will be going on that night, now I'm realizing that it's going to be a conflict, is the Prickly Pear Land Trust is doing a grand opening for the new Prickly Pear Park, which is the wetlands area south of the smelter, between the smelter and the Kleffner Ranch. So if you drive as if you're going to the Kleffner Barn, about a quarter mile out there, there's going to be a right-hand turn to the parking area. And from 4 to, I believe, 7 p.m. that night, they'll be welcoming folks there and inviting them to walk the trails. I'll be sending some information out to parents about it tomorrow. But that's something that we've been waiting for well over a year for them to get that opened up. They had to install a bridge to make the trail loop all the way, go over the creek and everything. So it's going to be pretty exciting. It's a really, actually a really cool area. I've been down there before when they were still working on developing it. And if you get a chance to show up out there, that'll be the afternoon of May 1st, and then our committee meeting would be at 6 o'clock that night. So. And then it'll be open to the public after that.
And I had the opportunity to attend a cold opening or a dry opening of it last fall, and it is very impressive. So if you have any opportunity to do it, the trail's not that long, but it is really nice, very scenic, a lot of different areas in there to take a look at, and I think it'll be a valuable enhancement for our community. So if you do get an opportunity, I would encourage you to attend. Does the board have any thoughts, ideas on our strategic plan for our future needs?
Depending on what we come up with number 2, we might have to address the next.
Sure.
The strategic plan.
Okay, well, seeing that, we will revisit this again next month. Okay, so next on the agenda is our legislative status report. Dan, do you want to take that on, or do you want?
Well, I could touch on the big ones. House Bill 15, as Brandon said, was signed by the governor at Prickly Pear Elementary, so that was exciting for us, for the governor's office to call and actually do a bill signing in one of our schools. I've worked here 24 years and we've never had that happen before. Even when we passed the high school bill, we went to the governor's office to sign it, and this time he came out here. So that was pretty neat. He, actually, after he signed it, he read a story to the kids in the classroom, and I was pretty impressed with how animated and at ease and relaxed he was with the little kids. He was very personable. So that was just fun for the kids to be part of that environment. A lot of dignitaries were there, including the Assistant Superintendent of Public Instruction, Ron Bittmoyer. So it was fun to reconnect with Ron in that environment. So that was the 3% inflationary increase that all along everybody's kind of anticipated, almost to the point that I would say it's almost a fault that people felt acted a little bit entitled about the 3%. I guess I felt like, even though it's legislative and everything else. Immediately after it was signed, we got new budget sheets from OPI, which I believe I shared with the trustees, reflecting that increase, and doesn't make us well-to-do for next year, but at least helps us meet our obligations. But I think it's super critical to point out that 3% is part of that calculation. The additional 65 A and B in our student enrollment is a huge part of that calculation that's helping us out going into next year. And so the fact that we're not running a levy when a lot of other districts are is probably due in part to the 3% and in part to that enrollment increase. The other bill that we talked about last month that I'm getting heartburn over is the STARS Act. We continue to hear that it has the votes to pass on the Senate floor. The report I heard today was they might try and blast it out of committee this week, because Lou's pretty confident he can carry it on the floor and get it passed. So I don't know if that's really true, but the reassurances that we keep getting from our organization leaders is the STARS Act is gonna pass, it just hasn't yet. And so that just makes some of us nervous, because we'd like to see that additional funding coming into the district, since we've already met the obligations that we need to meet pay-wise to qualify for the additional money. And there's additional caveats in the STARS Act that I don't think we talked about much last month. I think Scott mentioned it, but there is additional payments down the road with that money for every student that earns a labor-recognized credential or micro-credential through either dual credit or other types of training opportunities. And that pays help me out, is there 8 A and B?
I believe so.
To the high school, and then another portion of A and B to the middle school, or for the middle school payment, for each student credential that we can document. I have nightmares about the bookkeeping that's gonna be involved in that, and reporting, but it is obviously an example of the legislature putting their money where their mouth is, saying we want kids to graduate with skills that can be applied in the world of work. So we'll be watching out for that too, and trying to understand it. And then Representative Beatty had a bill passed last week, which I want to say it was 248, House Bill 248, but I might be wrong about that. And that was a cleanup bill related to language about charter schools. And it was complicated, super complicated, and it related to the way the funding formula applies to charter schools, especially in their first 2 to 3 years of existence, and the way 3-year averaging works. And long story short, it did amount to a little additional bump in our budget authority for next year. So we got another budget data sheet as soon as that bill passed. And so I can't imagine what it's like working at OPI trying to keep up with this and push the information out to schools. Other than that, I don't have a lot that I can comment on. There are several bills being heard tomorrow in Senate Ed. It's going to be a marathon committee hearing tomorrow afternoon. And most of them either amount to taxation equalization within counties, or some additional funding. The big one that we might want to pay attention to is the one related to major maintenance aid, which would give us a pretty significant boost to our major maintenance aid calculation that we do every year, and could amount to, it's not going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it could be in the $50,000 to $60,000 range if I'm doing the math right. So I don't know. had anything else you wanted to add, or anybody else?
The only thing I was gonna add as far as the, the STARS Act that you mentioned, is that one of the things to keep in mind, Dan was saying that you get partial A and B back if you're the high school or the middle school. That also includes if that student came from a different middle school. So if a student came from, say, C.R. Anderson and ended up coming to East Helena High, East Helena High would get that portion and CRA would. Well, that also includes our kids too. If we had middle school kids that ended up moving into a different area of the state and they graduated with those level of credentials, that enhancement would come to the East Valley Middle School. So it does work both ways, and it's a really unique way of doing that, applying that incentive. House Bill 339, which is somewhat of interest to us. It's not going to be a major one, but it potentially will fund 6th graders. It originally was at the high school A and B rate. However, that has now been slowly pared down as the session keeps going because of the price tag associated with it. That's kind of languishing, same with the STARS Act and the Senate Finance Committee. That hasn't moved on from that.
And they're looking at a delayed implementation.
And a delayed
for 2026.
Yeah. The 278, the Advanced Opportunities Expansion, that passed in the House as well with amendments. And so when we start talking about there's another line item that we have up here to discuss, that will come into play on whether or not if we pass that policy or that directive,
the position.
for that position, whether or not that's going to, if we should word it in such that pending the passage of that.
And that's Senate Bill 278.
That's Senate Bill 278, yeah. And then the ones that have died, I told you before about the taxpayer advocacy, where they were going to prevent anybody that had any association with taxpayer funding, say Dan or Montana School Board Association, no dollars would be able to go in order for us to enhance or to advocate for our positions at the legislature. That died along with the supermajority requirements. Those bills died as well. So that was a plus all the way across the board. If those supermajority bills would have passed, we'd never be able to pass another levy in this community again. So that was fortunate. And that's all I had for his major ones. There's a few other ones that are sitting out and ready to cook. I do think, in all honesty, that STARS is going to go in. Why it's being held up in there, I think it mostly has to do with that there's so many big pots of money associated with the budget that they're trying to just make sure that if they do pass it, there's enough funds to be able to fund it. I can't imagine that Senator Fuller would do that intentionally. Never know, but there's always there's a chance that there might be some other political pressures on there, but I believe that'll pass. It's going very, very fast, a lot faster than I was thinking. I heard a rumor at one point in time that they were going to be done by Easter. And when I heard that, that was about a month ago. And when I heard that, I said, absolutely not. There is absolutely no way that they'd be able to do that. Well, the way that they're going, I wouldn't be surprised if at least there's a motion that they sign die on it. I don't think it'll pass, but I believe that they might push on it. So they've been very aggressive as far as their committee actions have gone over the last few days, and then they're doing multiple boards in the overall floors. So they're moving. But none of that, that's all I had. So if there's no other questions, we can move on. Yeah.
I hate to ask a question.
Go ahead.
But House Bill 251, I'm assuming that none of the amendments fixed our 6th grade funding for charter school.
Is that 251, is that?
That's the big
That's the
one.
one what he said it is.
No.
But then there's a House Bill 339 that Melissa Romano's doing that said to fund 6th graders in middle school at high school A and B grades along with 7th and 8th graders. Would that do it?
No, because it's a mechanism in the funding formula that, yeah, you'd have to go really deep into the core of the funding formula where sixth grade, even if Romano's bill passes, that'll change the way we're funded for sixth graders, but it won't change the way they're counted.
So it has to go back all the way to how they're counted.
Yep.
As a part of the school.
Yeah.
And how our charter was established at the school.
But also not necessarily the charter, it goes back to how our schools are, correct, isn't it?
Kinda, I mean, it affects almost every school, because that portion of funding, the base aid funding still has sixth graders lumped in with kindergarten through fifth graders, it's K-6. And so, to receive a base aid payment, they take your count for grades K through 6, not K through 5, even if you're a middle school, and even if we get sixth graders funded at high school rates. And so that part of it, I haven't seen anything in legislation to adjust that. And honestly, part of the reason for that is we're probably one of the odd man out schools that's ever been negatively impacted by it. So it's like, they're not gonna change a law just for one school. Well, I guess they did with the high school, right? But
If you go back, I think, for 10 years.
yeah, and I mean,
So going forward, we just won't have a 227 for sixth graders.
we will, but our priority is to make sure we have at least 20 7th and 8th graders enrolled, so we get that middle school base aid. So that's where it's skewed. Our payment was that our enrollment was skewed to sixth graders, and because of the spots that they had already taken, we didn't have room for enough 7th and 8th graders to hit that 20 mark, and it wasn't until November that we realized that was going to be a problem. But it's a good observation.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, we'll now move on to notifications and retirements and resignations.
So there were two that were in your packet. Brooklyn Purcell, who's not resigning her teaching position, but is resigning her role as our cheer coach. And Darlene Jackowski, who has resigned her position as a special education teacher at high school. Those have been accepted on your behalf.
Any questions for Dan on the retirements and resignations?
Darlene.
Jackowski?
Yeah, was she just not renewed? Or did she actually retire?
She resigned.
Okay, so moving on then, we'll go to the consent action items. Before the board this evening, we have the minutes of our March 10th regularly scheduled board meeting, approval of our former and current warrants, personnel actions, and surrounding district enrollment approvals. I don't think we had any of those.
I don't think there's any on this.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Oh, yeah, there's one.
Okay. Typically, there is no debate on consent action items. However, if any member of the board wishes to do so, they can pull an item off and have it rated separately. And at this point, I would suggest that we pull the personnel actions. And I will explain why after. Are there any other suggestions on removing an item? Okay, if not, then I would entertain a motion to accept the consent action items as presented without the personnel actions.
So moved.
Have a motion by Marcia, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Tyrell. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Rationale behind pulling personnel action is that earlier today I received an email from Dan saying that they were looking to hire, make a recommendation for Angie, and I'm not even gonna.
Hey Gus, can you pronounce Angie's last name?
Oh, gosh. I had her son in high school with me last year. Jekka? Sheka? Sheka? Sheka?
That sounds good.
Sheka?
Sheka. We'll go with that. As a paraprofessional for the Radley School. And so then with her and the other two individuals, that would be the reason why I requested that. And do you need a spelling on that, Neil, or do you have that?
I have it.
Okay, so, at this point in time, I would ask, or look for a motion to approve the, 3 personnel action, or 3 individuals under personnel actions.
So moved.
Okay, Marcia moved, do I have a second?
3?
Yeah, there's more than 3, that's.
Oh, is there? Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's 2 resignations.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, okay, I'm with you, yeah,
So I
sorry.
just need to, I make a motion to approve the personnel items.
There you go.
I'll make a
Second.
motion to approve.
And motion by Tyrell,
No.
Marcia.
Marcia, I'll second.
and second.
Wow,
Lydia.
that was confusing. Let's start over. I'll make a motion to accept the personnel action items.
Thank you. And second,
I'll second.
Tyrell. Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. All right, thank you, appreciate it. Move on to unfinished business, and the first item under unfinished business is an update on our school bus purchase. Dan?
Who's tired of talking about school buses?
Hey, we're in diesel now, we're out of the electric.
That's right. No, I just wanted to circle back on this and give the board an update because we did debate extensively last month. After the meeting, I did have a long conversation with John Massaro at Hartley's about the Bluebird Type D pusher style bus, and was informed that I had received some not quite right information, that they're not discontinuing that style of bus anytime in the near future. They may be discontinuing the engine that we've always ordered in it, which is the 9-liter Cummins. And the reason for that is there's an EPA rule that's slated to go into effect later in the year that makes it untenable for them to put that engine in the bus anymore, but they're looking at other options. And he said there's a fair chance that the rule will get changed before the end of the year and you'll still be able to order that bus. So when we started down this road, our intent was to purchase one of those buses. Then when we found out they might be discontinued, we said, let's buy 2. Then we looked at the cost and said, well, let's buy one of these and one of this other kind. But the numbers that the board was looking at in March did not include, in the total for that international, did not include the cost of air conditioning or the seat belts, which raised the price to $186,000, which was more than what the $164 the board was looking at. So we did not order that international bus. We just ordered the one bus that we intended to buy. And now we're gonna sit on our hands and wait for that one to come in and then see what happens with tariffs and pricing and everything before we make another decision on another bus, if everybody's cool with that. That's my report.
Okay. Even if everybody's cool, not cool.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be a sale.
Well, there could be.
Buy one, get one.
So, this was just an informational item, let us know what was going on. Do we have any questions, comments for Dan on our bus purchase?
Oh, not a bad idea, actually, just get one and spread the cycle out.
Yeah.
What's our replacement cycle roughly, is it a 10-year, 15-year?
Well, I don't really know, because the whole time I've been working here, I've been in this job, I've been working on ordering electric buses, which we've kind of abandoned, so.
Yeah.
Given the fact that we're running, potentially 10 buses on 10 routes next year, I'd say we're almost gonna have to be on a 1-a-year cycle. We may not always wanna be purchasing the same style of bus though, like we may wanna go with that international style bus, or something used next time. Especially if tariffs drive up the cost of new buses, used buses might be the way to go for a while until things get more affordable again, so. And like I've told you guys before, that used international that we bought out of Oklahoma has been a great running bus, and there are pros and cons to each style of bus, and so it's not a bad idea to have a mix in our bus barn rather than all one style. So, but we can cross that bridge when we get to it, so to speak. In our bus. We'll be tapping the brakes on that bus.
Any other questions for Dan on our school bus purchase?
Right.
Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to our central office relocation proposal.
All right, so we're back to this conversation. The Infrastructure Committee did go pay a visit over to the health clinic, and Jen and Jill came along too, and walked through the building and just talked about options. And so before I chat too much, I wanted to give anybody on the Infrastructure Committee an opportunity to kind of share a little bit about what was discussed.
Okay. And the members of that committee were Tyrell and Tristan, along with myself. So, and we had some of the staff that were over there too, but what were your insights?
Go for it.
Insights were looking into using the building and making changes, but trying to make changes that were fiscally responsible and would benefit the building, but yet wouldn't cost a lot, but it would go out and be useful. That's kind of the short end of the stick.
Yeah, the building's got a lot of good features. It's fairly new. It's got a good entry, so we're going to have good control point there. Set up for several offices, which works out with the current staff level. There's, of course, water, sewer, everything there. There's air conditioning in it. It looks like the heating and power bills are not crazy. It's a good location. The only thing is it changes the purpose of that building. So that building will go from a medical clinic to what's serving, or to a building that will now serve the district directly instead of the community. So I think we had an original intent in our strategic plan that the district would have some sort of a clinic, and this would change that. So that's the reason why I alluded to changes to the strategic plan earlier, is that if we go forth with this, that would have to be addressed. So that's kind of an offside, but my opinion is it looks like through relatively simple changes, pretty economical changes, actually knock a wall out, open it up for Jill. It would be a building that would serve the purposes of the admin staff and no longer be in the current building, which is what, hot, cold?
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. It's got some extra guests in it occasionally.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's no doubt it would be an upgrade from the current building that we're in.
What's the size difference? I have a number of like specific.
Square footage, almost identical.
Really?
It's just it's
layout.
more the layout, the use of space is a lot smarter, and it's partitioned off better in the clinic building than it is where we're at right now.
Can you remind me how we paid for that building to begin with?
It was part of the Prickly Pear bond.
Okay.
So when we were building Prickly Pear, this was back in the day when you could buy a modular building for about $140,000, $150,000. That's I think what we paid for it. And we ordered it, and then we actually did a separate side contract with Dick Anderson while they were on site working on Prickly Pear to coordinate for the foundation and the install and the finish.
And then it was used as a medical clinic for some period of time?
About 4 to 5 years. And then it was about 2 years ago when Peerview contacted us and said, we're gonna shut it down for the summer. And then when we reviewed our lease and said, well, if you abandon it for X number of days, you've abandoned the lease the way it was written. And so they just said, well, then we're gonna abandon the lease, and they moved out.
And what efforts have been made to have a clinic in there? I don't remember.
Not really a lot. I've talked with Peerview some more about it. I kind of dropped it at that point because the SMA study was going on, and their recommendation was the move that came out of that study from SMA Architects. And so it's just kind of been in play. I did talk to I did have one medical provider who was, I believe, a nurse practitioner who talked to me once about possibly leasing it, but then she never called back. And I just haven't really had a lot of other contacts, but we haven't really gone out and hit the bricks to try and recruit anybody.
And in that case, but essentially, we're just a landlord to a medical provider.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, we're
convenience for
basically
us.
subsidizing their practice is what we're doing. With
That's
Pureview,
kinda
we were
right.
charging them like $1 a year for the lease. So it wasn't.
In return for the convenience of having them
Yeah.
nearby.
Yeah, providing a service to residents of East Town.
Is that a model that is, and you might know, is that a model elsewhere, other districts have
Yeah,
pursued?
there's several school districts around the state that have done that. I know one off the top of my head is Great Falls. Great Falls has got one right there on some of their properties as well. It's a little bit different situation in Great Falls, obviously, because it's a little bit more difficult for everybody in Great Falls to go to this outside clinic. The intention with East Talon is that our schools are fairly close together, and so if a kid needed a vaccination or needed some type of medical assistance during the school day, or if there needed to be athletic physicals, that we could just do it on site right there very quickly, so that the parents and the community wouldn't have to go clear into town in order to get that accomplished. And then as a side note, if our community was interested, they could come over and get some of their services taken care of outside of the school. But that becomes somewhat problematic as well, because if there are individuals that can't be within a certain distance of school because of previous convictions, then they're not allowed to do that. And so there were some complications associated that we weren't aware of when we moved forward with that clinic.
Would, so as a practical matter, and if we move the administration there, and you may want a motion before we do anything, I don't know, but, or.
No, I'd rather, let's air this out.
As a
because
practical
these are-
matter, I mean, you're never going back, like, it's never gonna be a clinic again.
Probably not.
I mean, just as a, what,
Technically, the stuff that we've talked about doing though isn't gonna
No, you're
necessarily
right.
change a lot of things.
And actually, so we
You're just
discussed that
gonna
with the
have one
committee,
office.
right? Not substantially changing the nature of the building. So there's sinks in the exam rooms, for instance, that we wouldn't take those out. So it could be repurposed as a clinic later in the future.
if we were to build another admin
Yeah,
building?
right.
Okay, I'm not trying.
That's a scenario that could play out, you're right.
Okay.
What would happen to the building?
The current building?
Yeah.
That's where, I'm just gonna stay there for my office, and I'm gonna send all the. No, we don't have a plan for it. We talked about making it storage. It's been recommended to tear it down. We don't really have a plan for what to do with that yet, but that would be a.
Could you turn it into another parking-ish spot for Bradley?
That was what the architects actually recommended, so are you going to architecture school?
Maybe I should.
Yeah.
I put a plug in for traffic engineering, not architecture.
So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. At one time, somebody told me that it was the music room for Radley School.
It was the
Before my
science,
time.
it was Mr. Kobe's room.
Oh, was it?
Well, not between when I went to school and became
Okay.
on the school board, but, yeah, it was the science room.
Been used for a few different things.
So would that be a separate discussion?
Yeah, down the road.
And the reason I ask is simply like, I mean, I have low standards, I think, for habitable stuff, but like, between a nice office and tearing down, there just seems to be a lot of that. Like, I have lots of things that I would store things in that I would not.
Yeah.
Or that I would have smaller number of people in, or less forward facing, lots of things. What other thoughts did you let's talk about costs that you saw that would be required, from the infrastructure.
Yeah, so
Where you guys visited, that was.
there was a page in the supporting docs with the proposed budget, so we'd be working off the option 2 side. We talked when we met last week, go back up just right there, about how realistic $11,000 is. I think that some of the trustees who were there in the committee felt like we probably need to bump that budget up just to allow for incidentals. I feel like other folks thought that they didn't spend any more money than that on the move. I feel like we could reprioritize things in there if expenses were running high. For instance, security cameras is something that we don't have right now at central office, so we wouldn't need that right away when we move into the new office. Same thing with the automated door locks. We all know how to use keys, so we could do that. So there would be opportunity for some cost savings there. So I think honestly, I think $11,000 is totally realistic.
So one question the litmus test I always use when you think of anything is like, what will this do for, like, we're in the business of educating students.
Right.
How will this impact student education? And my experience in the central office is that it works, but leaves a lot to, like, you're having sensitive conversations and you're kind of in the middle of everything. Jen is doing 100 things and there's like, it's not set up very well, but.
I mean, I don't think you're gonna see direct impacts in the classroom. I do think it's gonna elevate the professionalism and the overall appeal of the district. We do get a lot of visits from members of the public, parents, people applying for jobs.
It's awkward. It's like you're walking into somebody's apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah, except you're walking in through the kitchen. Would some of that, and so the thing that strikes me is like the forward-facing nature of it, like the public service or the public component. I mean, I presume this deal with that in some manner?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Probably also have a lot more parking availability. Radley's parking lot is usually pretty full versus Berkeley Fair. It's more accessible off of Valley. The one thing I guess we didn't mention is that the one floor on the new building as a positive is really set up for receiving. So for deliveries and a lot of that kind of stuff that come in, it's right at ground level. You know, you can run stuff right into a separate area that is not in the middle of all the office space, and it's separate from kind of outside. And there's a big enough room there to store the stuff as it comes in to sort and deal with it. So, you know, sorry about that, but there was that was a huge advantage the way that's set up. The other thing is this building, you know, looking towards the future, is it appears that without a lot of trouble, you could probably add on as the district grows, whereas the current structure is pretty much landlocked by Radley and other areas. It's, the clinic has, to the north, you could extend the building out that direction pretty easily is what it looks like. So, you know, like I said, there's some advantages there. It's nice and easy to see, but, you know, it's not a cinder block building like the existing one is, so hopefully the creature comforts, which will help morale.
Well, one thing that strikes me is that, like, I see it in the buses are the easiest places, where we like take the low-hanging fruit and like take the oldest bus and just kind of, I believe that many of that attitude has kept the district like where it is, which is not falling way behind. And it does strike me that, it sounds like the bus barn and the admin building are the two, for lack of a better term, worst aspects of the district. They're the things most in need of change.
Right.
And I believe there's been discussion about the bus barn, like the Bruce.
Well, and, you know, one thing here is the opportunity is this building is set and ready to go. It's vacant. We're not kicking anybody out because the clinics tried. They couldn't make it work with the lease situation the way it was, which was a pretty good deal. I'm pretty sure their usage was not even all that great when they were there. So, you know, having to get another, or to build an admin building, you know, not that this should really enter it, but I don't really feel like running a bond for anything like that to build admin buildings.
You're not gonna build
I mean, you're not gonna get it, so, you know, wanna build schools with that, so that's where that comes in. This is a very economical change. I mean, 11 grand, we're up and running by next school year, so.
And I'm certainly, like, we are not in the business of providing medical, I mean, that may be an ancillary thing, but like we are in the business of like taking care of employees and making things run smoothly.
It was a well laid out plan. I mean, so it's not like we're gonna need any engineering, I think, to get her done. So looks like you were planning to use mostly in-house assets to make the changes as well, not a contractor. So makes it even simpler.
Being a skill set.
So
hopefully you and Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that the central office, and I remember when they were doing that subdividing to the west, that the central office actually sits on the city street easement, Thurman Street.
Really?
And they tried to figure out if we were to move the building or if they were to go around it. And I suggested they go around it. I mean, this was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably. So you're not building onto that building unless you go off.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the city wouldn't let you go out.
I don't know if it would support it.
And the biggest problem I have with that clinic out there, buildings that aren't used deteriorate a lot faster than buildings that are occupied. And the community invested in that building, and it should be put to use somehow. And, man, I don't disagree with Mark. I don't know that we need to be a landlord. You know, if the central office can be used for storage, or at least, you know, what scares me is when you wake up some morning and it's 30-some below, and you wonder when it thaws out, is there gonna be water running out of the lowest window?
Right.
Because we don't know, I mean, that's the last thing you're gonna check on. You know, schools need to be taken care of, the kids need to be warm, and, you know, that building, well, if you go in there and open the door every day, then you know if there's a broken water pipe somewhere, you can turn it off. So that was my concern months ago when we discussed this, because I saw on Facebook not too long ago, a brand new house that was built in a cow pasture and left alone for a month, and 30 cows took up occupants in there, and there really wasn't a whole lot
Left of it.
I mean, it was all there, but the interior, you're gonna have to start over again. So,
One question I would have, in terms of, so is I assume you'll entertain a motion eventually. Will that be a motion to suggest they move there and appropriate the money, or use the money all at once? Is that kind of the deal?
Depending on how it was, I believe, and if I'm speaking out of turn from the committee's recommendation is that the board approve the relocation of the administrative building to the existing, or that health facility, and then authorize the budget in order to do so. And I know that Dan's got that estimate up here of $11,000. I know we talked about that. My concern is that there's been a lot of cost fluctuations that have been occurring right now. And so I would suggest, and this is not a requirement, but I would suggest that perhaps we do a capped budget of, say, $20,000, and then that gives a flexibility of that. If it comes under that 20,000, great, and if it reaches the 20,000, then they have to have additional authorization for us to approve that. But if we say 11,000 and that's what our budget, and they get halfway done with Jen's window, and he's not gonna get a half a window, we'll have to, it would end up messing up with the process, would be, I guess, my suggestion. That's not to say that he couldn't do a fixed amount either.
And that was my concern, was simply that there's nothing worse than telling somebody to do something and then saying like, but you can't have enough money to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I guess we entrust the administration to do things that are a lot more important every day and make big decisions, and I think, I guess, I would prefer to give them a capped budget and just say, please be frugal, or, you know, please be aware of the you know, spend the rest on a sign. But I do think, I absolutely think that the public-facing aspect of it will be much improved.
So can I ask a question? So if you deem that you're not gonna ever use it as a clinic, then can we take the sinks out of the offices? Because you won't need them, right? 2 of the offices, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know that I'm really hearing that.
If we make the decision that you are not going to use it as a clinic, at some point, can we take the sinks out of the offices?
And I don't think that I heard that decision.
I did not hear that decision, but it's not an inappropriate comment, Jill. I think that goes into what Tyrell was saying as far as it was part of our strategic plan. And the way that strategic plan was developed is that community, board members, administration, everybody was involved with it. And that was one of the items that came up. Once we ended up establishing it, the community didn't support it the way that we anticipated that they were going to support it. And it didn't get as much functionality with the kids that we thought it was going to do. So at that point in time, do we change our strategic plan and head a different direction with that? Just because, things change, and people's attitudes and, thoughts change. And so therefore, we're not beholden to doing that. I would suggest, though, that if we're heading this direction, that we don't keep bouncing back and forth and trying to do that. So I would be,
I'd be open to letting those things go. We just, that, I would say, that'd be a low priority item on this because if that blows the budget type of a thing. So, cause I don't see that on there.
I can't imagine that removal would be.
It's not gonna take a lot, but you just gotta cap the plumbing and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that's not an issue. But that building's actually set up pretty easy, I think.
Yeah.
Could be.
Tristan, did you have some thought on this thing?
Concern, please.
Tristan's always got a thought. I guess my thought would be, let's leave them in to begin with and see if you really don't like them in there. You might actually like a sink in your office.
It's, we can't fit the desks in there with them,
Desks.
so we'll have to get a new desk for the two of them. But it's definitely better than their current situation.
Will you say where the funding was coming from, Dan?
I think we have some money sitting in a miscellaneous grant fund that I think we can use for that. Is that what you were kind of thinking?
I guess we don't need to get into particulars of sinks or no sinks at this point. I guess our responsibility is to set the budget, to authorize the change, and then let the administration take care of the needs as they move into the building. I mean, the move is essentially, we're not changing this back to a clinic without extensive work because the other building, I'm trying to go back into that one. I can imagine the earful we would get there, so, I guess I'm willing. Are you willing for a motion?
I would, if I could get it from a member that was not part of the committee.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I would make a motion directing the administration to move into the old Pureview Health Clinic and with a capped budget of $20,000.
Okay, I have a motion from Mark. Do I have a second? Second from Mark. Questions or comments from the board?
I don't like the 20,000. I think it should be lower. I just think we're already we're sliding by on our overall budget, and the whole deal was to try to do it for as inexpensively as possible, and I'm not saying they're not going to, but I just feel like we set it at 20, people hear 20, and they're gonna think that that's what we're gonna spend. And if we have to come back, if he's doing it in sections where he's, here Dan already said you're gonna pick which needs to be done first. We have to come back and say, okay, I've met my 11,000 or whatever the number is, then we re-vote on expanding the budget. That's not how you.
Any other questions, comments? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, last chance. So again, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no.
No.
Okay, one no. Listen, Kristen. And the motion is approved. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. So now we move on to new business. And the first item under new business is our recognition of student Eagle Scout.
No.
Yeah, so Mr. Summerfeld is going to do the honors here and introduce our special guest.
Yeah, we have Mr. Andrew Mazonik here. He is a Eagle Scout, and he approached me months ago. And if you guys know anything about the Eagle Scout program, it's pretty laborious. They have to do a lot of community service, and they have to kind of cap it off with a big project. And Mr. Andrew came to me and said, hey, I'd like to do something for our music program. Andrew's last name is Mazonik. As you know, Mrs. Mazonik is one of our music teachers. And I don't want to steal too much. I don't want to steal too much of what he has to say, but even with that relationship, super purposeful, and it ended up being really an awesome project that made it really convenient. So at that rate, or at any rate, I'll give it over to Andrew.
Thank you. So over the past several months, I've been working on my Eagle Scout project. Originally, it was meant to benefit the music program, as they've given so much to me over the years. I contacted the music department regarding stuff they'd like or something like that, and they contacted me with the needs that they had, so I decided to make carts and boxes for xylophones and glockenspiels. The project serves over 900 students across 3 elementary schools. It helps with the mobility of instruments, and it helps with the easy setup and takedown of music programs. I've received over 90 hours of work on the project from volunteers since October, which includes East Helena students from Troop 207 and 212. Thanks to the generous donations from the East Helena PTO and Home Depot, it was possible. The elementary students and teachers have been enjoying the products, and have been able to safely use and operate the instruments.
Very good.
And you got some pictures to show us.
I do, yeah. So this was the first day we were working on the projects. There's 2 East Helena students right there. We were putting together the glockenspiel boxes and cutting them and all that. We were teaching how to use a drill press for drilling the holes in the boards for the glockenspiel boxes. We were varnishing the boxes. I had a bunch of East Helena kids and some others from Troop 218 in Helena helping me with that. That was at Radley. And I was presenting the boxes and cards to Mr. Krantz at Radley.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So you're a Life Scout now, when is your Court of Honor and when do you get your Eagle?
I haven't done my border review yet.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other questions for Andrew?
I got one more comment. If you ever are the person responsible for setting up or taking down a concert held in the East Helena Public Schools, these are very useful because it's just travel is safer with them, and it makes it convenient to transport them. So I was having a hard time envisioning it when Andrew first came to me, but then when I got a picture of it, I was like, yeah, that's going to be super useful for being the person who sometimes has to take these down the stairs.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well,
Good job.
congratulations. Okay. You're up,
There's someone playing music.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an alarm or something. I thought, I'd get a little nervous after a while.
An Irish jig.
Okay, next item on the agenda is an out-of-state travel request for the East Helena High School BPA. And Dan, I'll let you introduce the group.
Our special guests are here. We want to hear all about the trip and the fields of competition and where you're going and how we got to this point.
Awesome. Well, I'm Brianna Humphrey-Gilbert. I'm the advisor for Business Professionals of America, and we have Copen Early and Abigail Bishop, and we also have Isaac Allison, who couldn't make it tonight, but they are able to go to nationals, which is really great for their competition, Small Business Management. So I'll let them talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so this is actually our second year that we'll be going to a national competition. Last year, our small business management team went to Chicago, Illinois for their competition, ended up winning 3rd place. And so our team this year is actually really hoping that we get to do the same, maybe even better, considering what we've been doing. So the national competition will be in Orlando, Florida, May 6th through the 11th. And it is considered the pinnacle event for BPA members. While attending this national competition, we will compete in the Small Business Management Team event, attend student workshops, connect with peers from different parts of the country and also other countries like China and Peru were there last year, and it gains exposure to diverse perspectives over the areas of the world. We also get the opportunity to volunteer with BPA for Special Olympics, and all these opportunities will essentially help us grow educationally, professionally, and it will help us grow into leaders of our society. So, pretty cool.
And so, a little more context. As Abby said, last year we also went to nationals, and what's cool is that this is the second year that BPA will actually be competing. So we've qualified for nationals both the first 2 years of our actual competitions, and like this year or like last year, I'm hoping that this year will be another culture shock, going to another city that far away, getting to explore, talk to the people there, learn about just getting to meet all the people there, and being able to compete. Our competition specifically, small business management teams, it's like they give us a prompt at the beginning of the year. We went to regionals here in Helena, gave our presentation on the prompt, which is a failing business. We talked about 10-minute presentation on how to turn that business around. That qualified us for state, where they gave us a twist. So we had 30 minutes to fix our presentation to align with the twist that they gave us, and then we gave our presentation there, placed fourth and qualified for nationals, and then again at nationals they'll give us a second twist where we have another 30 minutes to incorporate it into our presentation. And so, like we said, last year placed third, and I believe first group at East Helena to put a national plaque in the trophy case. So that was pretty exciting, and hopefully we'll be able to be the second group to do that again as well. And so we'll be traveling with Ms. Humphrey, as well as the Helena High BPA, who is advised by Samantha Humphrey. Like Abby said, we'll leave on May 6th, return on May 11th, and stay at the Gaylord Palms Resort. We appreciate your consideration in approving our traveling to Orlando for this event. It will provide wealth of opportunities for us to increase our knowledge, skills, and professionalism, and has the potential of increasing student interest in our club for the following years.
Okay.
So, any questions for us? We can talk about this forever.
Yeah. Don't you wish it was in Italy?
When was the one in Chicago? What time of year?
It was the same dates, I believe.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you want a culture shock, you're gonna get some humidity when you get out.
Haven't been down that far yet, but
Yeah,
So,
it'll be awesome.
question for Brianna. How many from East Helena are going to be coming?
It'll be us four, so.
Just the
yep,
four.
just the four of us, yep.
So you'll be the sole chaperone necessary from East Helena, and it's your mother, I'm assuming?
Yes.
That out of
I was gonna
Helena?
ask.
Yes.
And how many kids out of Helena High do you estimate?
I believe there's only 2 going.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay,
it's a
so it'll be a
small
fairly small group for the two.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So by state law, it's a requirement that we approve all out-of-state travel for our students. And so therefore, I would entertain a motion to approve the out-of-state travel request for the East Helena High School BPA. Do I have such a motion?
I'll make a motion.
A motion from Kristen
Second.
and a second from Marcia. Questions or comments from the board?
Gaylords are really nice resorts.
Takes much.
Yeah.
You couldn't finagle your mother-in-law to get you a
I
place
know.
in
California.
Disney.
Sounds good.
Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those by saying no. Motion carries. Have a good time.
Congratulations.
Great time.
Good luck.
Okay, next item. Next on our agenda, under new business, we've got a consideration of our multi-district agreement with the Lincoln School District.
Yeah, so the multi-district agreement is, essentially it's a financial tool that we share with Lincoln. This is a part of state law that allows school districts to enter into these types of agreements to form a fund, and we are the managing fiduciary in the fund, which means Jill keeps track of how much of our money is in the fund and how much of Lincoln's money is in the fund. And to make a long story short, it's a spot where the district can tuck money away separate from the budget that we quote unquote have to spend every fiscal year. Hopefully that's not somebody running into one of our cars out. Anyway, the agreement is up and due to be renewed. And so we're asking for the board to take that action today so that we can continue our relationship with the Lincoln School District.
Okay. And I would entertain such a motion for the board.
I'll make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement with Lincoln School.
Okay, got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Tyrell. Questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Okay, item number 4. We have got approval for a new student account for the Pretty Cool Class Club.
And so if you, I think I put it in the notes, but this is a group that is going to work on doing nails. So this could be considered a career development, but they're looking at it right now mostly as a creative outlet and activity. And so because of the tools and equipment and supplies that they need to do this work as their club, they need a spot to do a little bit of fundraising, raise money, and stash the money away. So they've got a request for student activity account with the board.
Okay, and as before, we have to approve those accounts, so I would entertain a motion for the board to approve the student activity account for the Pretty Cool Class Club. I like that. Do I have such a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Tristan, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Marcia. Do you have that too? Any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Next on the list is our consideration of a letter of appreciation for the East Helena Public Schools, East Helena PTO from this board. Last month, if you recall, we talked about perhaps writing a letter to the PTO to express our gratitude for all the things that the PTO has done for the district over the last couple of years especially, but just long-term throughout. And so we had a draft that was developed, then that was passed on to the rest of the board. The rest of the board made a few comments, tweaks here and there, and I believe they got incorporated. So then at this point in time, what we'll need is a motion, and if approved, then we'll have the board members that are here sign that letter, and we can get that sent off to them. So is there anyone that would be willing or wanting to make a motion for the board to approve that, the issuance of that letter?
So moved.
Okay, a motion from Tyrell.
Second.
And a second from Marcia. Questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Yes, the only thing that I would suggest is that they have done just phenomenal work over the years. I mean, I remember when I first started on the board 18 years ago, that they were very active doing things, and now they just continue to do that. And I mean, membership changes constantly, people move in and out, but the transition never seems to shake the efficiency and the work that the organization does. So really appreciate their efforts. So just out of curiosity, Any members of the PTO that are here? Thank you.
I can't get off the board. Yeah. No, just kidding. I volunteered to stay another year. I'll have to look after this year.
Okay. All right. So, and if there's no other questions or comments, then all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. And do you have the original?
It's in your sign folder.
Okay, I will sign and I'll have you folks sign as it gets passed at first. Okay, we'll move on now to item number 6, which is a consideration of renewing the softball co-op with Jefferson High School.
Okay, so I had my wires a little bit crossed in my understanding of this when I put the packet together. What we're actually deciding tonight, if anything, well, the only action the board would have to take tonight is if they wanted to end the cooperative agreement. So the initial agreement was a 3-year agreement. You can correct me if I'm getting this wrong, Sean, but I think I understand it now. That was a 3-year agreement. In the interim, from the time that we put this agreement in place with Jefferson County, MHSA changed the rules to basically say that any co-op that's in existence is in existence in perpetuity unless one board or the other decides to end the relationship. So it's still on our agenda, it's just not necessarily an action item. Our recommendation is to continue the co-op, and my recommendation would be that we revisit this annually in the spring to discuss and determine whether it's still appropriate for us to continue that relationship. There are things going on in Jefferson County at Jefferson High that might make it a moot point within a couple years. But for right now, we do have some students participating. And so Sean's here tonight, we have Coach here tonight, I think, talked a little bit about it. And basically see if any trustees have any questions about how it's going or what's going on with it.
I thought I'd let Cora talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, you want me to go over there?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
please do.
So we have about 7 girls on our co-op, and it kind of makes up our JV team right now. So if the co-op were to be taken away, we'd have to combine into just one big varsity team, which turns into kind of a difficult matter because everyone progresses at different levels. The JV is our feeder into our varsity program, and with that taken away, it kind of takes the opportunities of our girls to play in live scenarios. So if we take away the co-op or not have those Jefferson girls, we'd have to make one big varsity team because we wouldn't have enough to compete. So we have 7 right now, and they're not taking away anything from our girls. They're mostly giving back just because they make up our varsity team, and they let us be able to play JV and varsity teams grow. And like I said, the JV is our feeder into our varsity program, so they're feeding in, and if we don't have that, then we just kind of have just one team is growing, and then the others, they don't get as much opportunity for live games. If that makes sense. Yep. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for me specifically on that?
Does the board have any questions?
Is there any extra cost incurred from the Jefferson girls? Do they give their own equipment? Do they?
Yeah, so we have like softball bats, like that's team, but they're gonna be there regardless, whether if they're there or not. Uniforms, same thing, they're gonna be there regardless if they're there or not, so, yeah.
Transportation costs and
Jefferson covers that.
Right, covered.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions?
Any questions for Dakota? I have a question for Sean because it's more related to MHSA. Stacy had asked, and I was thinking the same thing. We remember that there was a question about MHSA requiring that a team then would have to go up to
Double A.
or to whatever, it had to take the combined A and Bs associated with the schools in order, and then that was what established your, what class you participated in. Does that, is that sports specific?
Yeah. To give you an example, I know that like Ennis and Three Forks co-op in wrestling, and they bumped them from B to A. But us, with our numbers, we would be in AA numbers, but we petition the MHSA every year to stay in Class A in softball. And last year they approved it. So every year we'll go to their executive board and make a request. And I'm always like, we got grandfathered in before that MHSA policy got put into place, so we prefer to stay in the Class A, especially. If we started competing and we're winning state title after state title, they'd bump us up.
So as of this point in time, it does not jeopardize our classification in softball, but it potentially could.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the executive board meets in
They made several times, but I think we did it last year in November, if I remember correctly.
So we would know
Or
for spring
September.
roll.
Mhm.
And that's why I think we want to look at it every year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I would hate to have these talented team get penalized for doing the right thing to allow Jefferson, you know, because they're not unable, for whatever reason, unable to field the team themselves. Trying to do a nice thing by allowing their kids to join us. But if it jeopardizes our ability to participate in the district that essentially we actually belong to, that we need to reconsider it.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Or whatever, at this point in time, I guess I would entertain a motion. I guess we need to.
No, we don't need to.
Yeah, so is there any other comments out there? Okay, then, thank you, appreciate it.
What's that? That's the old one.
Oh.
That's the old, I wrote that before I was educated, right.
You
Yeah.
have to wanna be out, the need to.
Yeah.
You have to opt out, okay.
You have to opt out.
Okay, so moving on then to item number 7, it will be our first reading of board policy 8210, and you'll love this one.
Yeah, 8210 is our food service procurement policy. We wrestled with this a year ago. You probably have blocked it from your mind. The model policy from School Boards Association was kind of convoluted and basically gave us a range of a purchase threshold between $10,000 and $50,000 that we could set for purchases for food service before going out to bid. So we set it at $50,000, believing that we were allowed to do that. When OPI came in and monitored our program, they informed us that we can't set it at $50,000 because 2 years ago we had a high-risk audit. And the reason it was a high-risk audit is because we had over $1 million in federal grants coming into the district at that time between COVID relief funds, Title I, the literacy grant, and so that made us a high-risk audit. And we have to be more than 2 years away from being a high-risk audit to have a threshold over 10,000. So OPI is forcing us to lower the threshold to 10,000. And that's the only change in this policy, and that's why it's on the agenda. We've argued with Sydney at OPI for 3 months, and we're finally letting her win. So, is that a good way of putting it, Jill?
That was a great way.
Okay.
Since our audit was smiling.
Yeah, there wasn't anything wrong with the audit. There's nothing, and we tried to say, well, look, that was 2 years ago, so let us just leave it the way it is. And she said, you have to be more than 2 years away,
So when's that date?
well, it'll be next fall's audit will be the
Next fall's audit?
3rd year, so then we could change it back up.
So do you want me to dig into this?
Hey, I think let's just change it and move on.
Okay, I said, cause I could pick all kinds of stuff out of here, we could go about 4 or 5 months digging through it.
Yeah, it's all federal rules, and it's very complicated, and the only thing that we ever buy, other than, like, if we had to buy a new cooler, so we'd have to go out to bid on that. And we actually did it several years ago. The only other thing that we purchased that even comes close to being over the $10,000 threshold is milk. And so Michelle's working on ways to break up that order, and she actually did find a lower cost provider, so, it's actually working in our favor. So we just need to, this will be a first and a second reading, our first reading tonight, second reading next month. We had to notify OPI of our anticipated date of adoption, so that's what we did.
FFA's gonna have to invest in milk cows.
Great, that's what we need. A little corral out back.
Don't suggest that when you're sitting that close to Mark.
That's why I said it. He's rubbing off on me.
That's what I'm afraid of.
It could be worse.
No, it couldn't. Okay, so due to the requirements that we have before us, that this policy does need to be changed in order to be in alignment. And so therefore, I would recommend or request a motion to approve the changes to policy 8210, lowering the threshold to $10,000 under first reading. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion from Tyrell.
Second.
And a second from Mark. Any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Next on the list is our consideration of a new position for the Advanced Opportunity Facilitator Career Coach.
Okay, so this is a request to establish this position as a pilot. This is and I have a job description drafted up, and I meant to bring it with me, and I apologize I didn't bring it. But I can explain what the career coach will do. And this is being carried in a bill by Sarah Novak, Senate Bill 278. She actually told me that she requested the bill being drafted based on a conversation that she and I had about a year ago about this issue. And that is that we're trying to create meaningful career advancement or career learning opportunities for kids and work-based learning experience for kids. And it's a major challenge when most of us are locked down to the full-time jobs that we're already doing, and we really need somebody building relationships with people who work in industry and can coordinate with those folks about school rules, school schedules, students who might be interested in learning more about their business and being either an intern or an apprentice or a paid employee who's also earning school credit while working there. So Senator Novak drafted this bill, and what it does is, if it passes, authorizes us to use up to 20% of our advanced opportunity allotment, which I put that letter in the supporting docs. We're slated to get $107,000 next year for advanced opportunity. What we do with that money is, and you probably saw maybe an interesting claim this month, is we use that to help students advance their career goals and opportunities that they might be interested in for their future. So for instance, we've had advanced opportunity, the grant, since we opened the high school. No student has ever paid for the AP test at East Helena High School. We pay for that out of advanced opportunity. We pay for their dual credits at Helena College out of advanced opportunity. If they do dual credits through another online institution, we pay for those credits out of advanced opportunity. We had a student work halfway through the CNC machining program at Helena College through advanced opportunity. We have a student getting his commercial driver's license right now through advanced opportunity. And we're helping a kid become potentially a commercial pilot through advanced opportunities. So the funds are there doing that, but we're not really being as effective as we could be in creating these opportunities for kids to get out of the school building in their junior and senior year into the community, work in a healthcare facility or a mechanic shop or with an electrician to learn about that field and decide if it's something for them. And this career coach or advanced opportunity facilitator is somebody who is going to help us
build those relationships and make those connections and create those opportunities for kids. The funding structure for it would come from a portion of our advanced opportunity funds. If Senate Bill 278 passes, and I would support making any motion contingent on Senate Bill 278 passing, we would get a quality educator payment for this career coach, whether or not they have a teaching license. So we could hire pretty much any individual to come and be our career coach and facilitate advanced opportunities for kids, and we would get quality educator payment, which if the STARS Act passes, should be about $8,200, if I'm doing my math right. That money with the 20% of the advanced opportunity grant, combined with money from our innovative education tax credit donation that we received this year, will more than pay for the salary of this individual if Senate Bill 278 passes. And so I guess what I'm saying is we've got a senator who's carrying this bill, trying to support schools, and if the bill is successful, I would like us to try and pilot this position and see what kind of opportunities it can create for our kids in East Helena.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Just trying to track through all of the money that you were talking about, what's the end dollar? How much do we end up, I guess, having to write out of our current general fund, or is this fully supported via this bill and other programs that we have?
Our vision is we would fully support this position this year through the Advanced Opportunity Grant, the tax credit donation, and the quality educator payment.
So it's not a hit on our existing general fund?
No.
Okay. This person would then, so there's money, but the scope of their services, would this be something like that they would deal with KNPT, that program that's going on?
Yep, they would help, they would be a liaison for that. And so the big advantage is it's not a classroom teacher. So we've got guys like Casey Harris and Brad Paskey who are CTE teachers at the high school. They're amazing at what they do. They're teaching from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. They'd love to get their kids more opportunities to go out and work in a welding shop or work in a carpentry shop. But they're kind of tied down. This person can be that go-between, that liaison for them.
So this would take the place of what the counselors are doing right now?
Yeah, or trying to do.
Yeah.
Probably work with counselors
Yep.
and advisors.
And parents.
Yeah.
Yep. Understanding.
Cool.
Yep.
Sorry,
Any
Tristan.
penalties if all fails?
No, we just wouldn't
More
renew it.
billing.
So we would issue it on a one-year contract. That would be kind of that would be the understanding. And we've done that before with instructional staff. It would just,
The person quit halfway through the year, who would just use the funds for whatever they were allocated for.
Yeah.
They're doing that happen, it's not one situation.
Right. But it's an experiment, there's no doubt about it, but I think it could have a huge payoff. We've got kids who are interested in this kind of stuff, but obviously they can't just set up their own credit-based learning opportunity, and so it needs a little bit of nurturing and support to really get those things going.
And I'll just throw in my 2 cents worth. In my conversations that I've had over the last few months with like Lou Jones and Dave Beatty and those guys, this is precisely what the legislature is looking for when they start talking about CTE programs. And they keep asking, well, what is your school doing in order to enhance those types of programs? And I mean, something like this, we stick this bug into their ear that this is what we're using it for, they're gonna be just, you know, over the moon. Yeah, this is exactly what they were after, is trying to get a bigger net cast so that our kids have greater opportunities to utilize that. Go ahead. You'd probably get in enough trouble between now and the end of the year to be able to have.
I threatened the flunker the other day. I think we were at a baseball game. So, at this time, I would I would entertain a motion to authorize the
what'd you call that?
Advanced opportunity.
The advanced opportunity facilitator, career coach, but I would suggest that whatever motion does have that pending approval of Senate Bill 278. If we don't have that, then we probably should revisit it.
I make a motion to approve the creation of the Advanced Opportunities Career Counselor? Coach, contingent upon passage of Senate Bill 278 as still favorably written for the district. How's that sound?
That's good.
Got that, Joe?
So I have to approve the new Advanced Opportunity Facility Career Coach position for the 25-26 school year contingent on HB 278 passing through the legislation, or through the legislature. I kind of flipped his words when I was doing it. So tell me what you said, contingent
With
on.
favorable language. If they amend it, we may have to read it, but that's the issue, is if they amend it and it becomes defunct, or not beneficial.
So with favorable language that benefits the district?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Or Sundays.
Second, on it. Jill?
And a second for Tristan.
Never was.
Questions, comments from the board?
Did we get a second?
Yeah, Tristan.
Okay.
Questions, comments from the board? Questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no, motion carries. I probably should ask this prior to us approving it, but it really doesn't matter, it's more of an academic question. Is that, does this hinder your ability, us waiting, or having to wait until the approval of the?
Because we can actually post it, and if the bill, like, we could post it tomorrow.
Right.
If the bill fails, we just won't fill the position.
Okay, that's my question, is if it caused any lack of flexibility, we're good, yeah. Okay, we'll move on now to our update or report on our ESSA report card.
Okay, so this is a federal requirement for the state to gather this data and report the district report card under the Every Student Succeeds Act. The data sheets are in the supporting document. These are what they call embargoed. I believe they go public on Wednesday. And so we're just sharing information with the board. I think that the big piece of this is, if you remember looking at it last year, you're probably thinking that things haven't changed much. And the reason is because 2 years ago, we offered to pilot the MAST test, and we don't take what's the other test, you guys? SBAC, the Smarter Balance Assessment anymore, because we're a MAST pilot district. As a MAST pilot district, we're actually not getting data back yet on student achievement because it's a pilot test. And so these scores are the last time that we had SBAC scores reported. What OPI is reporting for us. So I didn't go back and check, but I would bet the numbers are almost identical to what we looked at last year. I did ask the principals to be ready to just share a little, this is an information item, with the board about what they're doing in regards to reading and math achievement in their buildings. So if you're okay with that, we'll let Brandon, Gus, and Lindsay talk a little bit about that. Brandon?
Yeah, I go first. And so it's deceiving because as a K2 school, we don't do standardized tests anyway, so our information doesn't technically get reported. It gets reported in a sense because obviously our kiddos roll into 3rd grade. But what we do is we, from a system standpoint, we just meet bi-weekly with teams. And through those team meetings, teachers share out their progress monitoring they're doing with students, their PDSA cycle, but I won't get into the weeds on that too much. And really, in essence, what we're doing is we're tracking each individual kid on how they're currently progressing in the classroom and in their focus or intervention reading group. And then based upon their data, then we move them up or down and then provide additional support. We do that for reading. Math looks slightly different. We don't do a whole school intervention, but we do something similar where we just make sure we're progress monitoring students' progress. And then if we don't see the growth we want to see, then we pull it back a little bit and determine like what are the next steps.
Yeah, very similar process at Bradley. We use an assessment tool titled the iReady Diagnostic. It's a very reliable test, and I'm pretty grateful that the district has invested in us using that reliable tool. It provides us with a lot of insight on what students are capable of doing, and then the roadmap to get to students who aren't quite there. What are some interventions and skill-based instruction to get those students there. And so very similar, we evaluate each student's monthly progress monitoring. If kids aren't meeting the mark, then we talk about them at grade level meeting on how we can get them to where we want them to be. Radley did participate in our fifth graders last year, did participate in the science SBAC, and I'm super proud of our results as compared to the state averages. We were above each mark in all the 4 categories: advanced, proficient, and nearing proficient. I think the part that would really stuck out to me is that only 9% of our 5th graders last year were novice, as compared to 28% of the average of the state. So our teachers are teaching science. I think we did a curriculum review a couple of years ago, and the program that we selected, I think, aligns better for our students. It's easier for our teachers to really teach the subject matter, and they're performing. It was pretty nice to see that part of our report card. But we do the MAST. We are part of the MAST pilot program, and this is to replace Smarter Balanced, which was our state accountability testing. I think it's up and down. I think it's a good concept. Essentially what it is we had the summative assessment with SBAC at the end of the year. All content, all learning standards were assessed in, say, 1 week in May, late April, early May. It's a lot, we have to do it. This MAST, though, it's called a through-year assessment, and so essentially they are going to do smaller segmented assessments for different periods of the school year. So I think it's a little bit less of a large assessment at the end of the school year. I think, I don't have a ton of evidence, but it just from a general feeling, it feels like we save lost instruction time. So there's some good things, there's some bad things. I think they really got to work this summer to create cut scores to tell us whether kids are proficient or not. So, because they don't have those yet.
All right, so EBMS, I hate to brag, but for Science SBAC, we have been higher than the state the last 2 years. Unfortunately, we will be losing a science teammate, which has broken my heart, but it's fine. I'm not gonna give any more crap about it. So, and then for ELA and math, we do the mass testing. We really struggle at EBMS with the mass testing because we're on the every other day, so math and English teachers are seeing them every other day, so their window to teach their instruction is half of everybody else's, so we're having a hard time fitting those standards into mastery to be assessed those 3 times a year. So that's where we're really struggling right now, so we're hoping to come up with a plan. We're also taking our IXL for math and the standards for reading, and we're breaking the kids up into learning labs, so those who need more instructional help in reading and more instructional help in IXL, they actually go to a learning lab with a math teacher or an ELA teacher for that extra support.
What high school?
All right, high school. So I'm guessing I understand that sort of things haven't kind of changed in there. The only test that we do now is the ACT for juniors. So that's it. Our reading scores look pretty good, English and reading, in comparison to the state. It's not better than the state average. Obviously in science and math we're struggling. Science we're you know, and I use the word struggling. We're not at the average, but we're not one of the worst schools. And certainly we have a lot of very capable students. But when we're talking about the whole group, that's a little bit different. We have just next year we will be on a new English curriculum, so that's going to continue to make that kind of strong. We're moving into program called Interliterature, which I've got a little bit of a understanding of, having worked with it in another school. And next year, our math department will get together to work out exactly what they want to do in terms of a new curriculum to develop next year. We are also doing this year, they've brought in EdReady as kind of a benchmark test across the grades in English in particular. I'm not sure what they do in math in terms of any benchmark testing. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. In terms of, you know, it's interesting that, you know, we have, obviously the best way to sort of improve our scores is to have, you know, our teachers at as high level as possible as teachers. So we've got to continue to develop, and we do have some quite young teachers, some of the department areas. And then outside of that, you know, if the kids come in with higher skill levels too, that helps us as well, obviously. So yeah, there's a lot to it in terms of trying to raise the scores, but we're forever sort of looking at ideas to sort of help those kids in particular that are struggling to catch up. You know, we have tutoring programs going non-stop after school. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's about what I've got really. The idea here, once again, is for us to keep trying to be as innovative as we can, like with the 2 to 7 Academy, to try and get these kids up to speed, and obviously to give our high flyers in the high school in particular opportunities through the Advanced Opportunities Grant and also college credit.
Does the board have any questions for our administrators? Yes, one for you, Paul, is that you mentioned something about your ACT, the juniors, seniors, or whatever the only test that they take, or I'm assuming seniors aren't taking any test, but so the juniors are taking ACT. And if I remember correctly, ACT is English math, so it's not reading math, number one. And number two is that when I look at these reports that we're getting, and it goes novice, proficiency or whatever, on a national level, what are we comparing to? I mean, not every state requires or provides ACT like we do, I'm assuming. So how are we as a district going to be able to compare on a national level our juniors?
Yeah, I don't know how it goes in terms of what the average are across different states, because we're comparing ourselves to ourselves across the state of Montana. And so, you know, for instance, you know, our average might be, you know, 24 here in the state, and I don't know, in Florida it might be 25 or 26, but do we know how many of those guys are being tested?
Yep.
You know, and do we know sort of exactly what the rules are behind the ACT testing?
And are they all taking the ACT or are they taking SAT?
Yeah, and also, you know, and I'll say this too, you know, I've been in a school where I was teaching the ACT, you know, I taught it as a class. And so once again, if you have those specialised classes, you're going to have more kids that will be in the mid-30s. But once again, it's like, you really want to waste a class on preparing for a test. One of the things that we have talked with the teachers is, and myself and Trish, we try and get to the monthly meetings of the departments and just talk to them in particular. I know I had this question right at the start of the year. What are we doing to prepare our kids for the ACT? And so that's done at a department level, and those guys basically get together and go, okay, we need to start preparing our kids for the type of questions they get. Are they being really successful at doing that? I mean, is it enough? I don't know. But that'll be something certainly we'll be looking at, to sort of, especially in those math and science schools. It looks really good, like our reading and writing skills seem to be fairly decent. But yeah, but certainly, and this is the same in every school I've been in, the math schools are a concern, always have been. And science is always kind of a tough one. But yeah, so to answer your question, how we compare to other states, I don't know, it depends on the rules.
Well, I guess that's where my basis of my question is mostly rhetorical, but it's a source of frustration with me because you hear about, you know, how Montana compares to other states. When we're in the younger grades, and if we're all taking the same test, the assessments are the same, you're able to make those types of comparisons. But we have absolutely no idea, but we are being, our school is being graded on a perception that we are or not doing something that we don't even know whether or not how we compare. How would somebody that doesn't even have any perspective be able to make that?
Yeah, and when you're talking about sort of college entry and stuff like that, that's sort of where it gets kind of gray and fuzzy.
College ready versus career ready versus, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, the thing is, you could spend a whole bunch of time, like parents do, and what kids do, and what some schools do, preparing for the ACT. But the question you got to have is like, is that time that you spend on that useful in the big scheme of things?
Well, I was gonna say, when they started having all juniors take the ACT, because I was teaching in a different district, and when we started having everyone take it, you saw the average of every school plummet, because before it was college kids took the ACT, not all students. The other thing is we saw a really high level of stress around the ACT. Students in particular, Brooke, shake your head, because I saw this last week with our juniors. It is the most high stakes test they take all the way through high school. What we've done to prepare them for that, though, is the pre-ACT for freshmen and sophomores, so they can get ready to take this test, so they understand what it feels like. Our freshmen take that on Wednesday. It'll be the first time they're in a large room taking a high stakes test like that. So we are trying to help kind of alleviate some of that stress with it, but I mean, it's the most high stakes test they take all the way through high school.
Thank you, appreciate your responses.
Just one more thing with that too. I know we've got at least one junior that I know is going to take the test again next year. They want to do it next year as a senior. And that option's always there as well.
Well, and there's scholarship opportunities at the state level based on your ACT score. So. Any other questions for our admin staff? Thank you, appreciate your report on it.
I think it's worth, before we move on, pointing out the expenditure graphs too, that we're just open to. Our per pupil expenditure is significantly below the state, which you already know. That's just of note. That's, in a way, that's feather in our cap, and in a way, it's a sign of things that we could be doing for our kids. And then the last thing I'll point out is we are going into a math curriculum revision and adoption year next year. That's our cycle, which looks like we're ready for that. So. All right.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, then we'll move on to item number 10, which is our consideration or renewal for all intents and purposes of our FWP Hunters Education Program. Under policy 3311 and under state law, we have the ability or the authority to be able to dictate whether or not firearms can be placed into our in our school district, but it does take board approval. And so in order to accomplish that for the Hunter Education Program, this has to be done on an annual basis.
Yeah, the letter's in your packet. As long as I've been here, we've had Hunters Ed, and that's a program I think the community values. I think it's important that if we're going to be sending kids out in the field, that they know the safe way to handle a firearm. And so part of teaching kids a safe way to handle a firearm is you have to have them in the classroom so they can look at it and be educated about it. And so this is just a request for our Hunters Ed instructors to be able to bring those weapons on campus and display them for the kids and use them.
Okay, so at this point in time, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Second. I'm sorry, to this.
Continue the agreement with Montana Fish and Wildlife for education program.
Yeah, second from Mark. Okay. Do you have that, Jill?
I do. I don't know if I got exactly what she said on the motion. I just wanted to approve the request for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Hunters Education Instructors to utilize demonstration firearms on campus as part of their training training.
Holy cow.
Perfect.
Yep.
Bob's kind of dancing.
Is that what you said, Tristan?
Yeah, sure.
That's exactly what I said. I heard it and I'm deaf.
Okay.
Good job.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no, motion carries. Number 11, consideration of lease agreement with Prickly Pear Cooperative for the Miller House.
So the Miller House is an actual house that we own by the bus barn. It's been leased to the co-op now for at least 10 to 12 years, maybe longer than that. They use it for office space. They have 3 employees that work in there, plus they have a number of other employees that work out in the field in the districts that they serve, from White Sulphur Springs down to Whitehall. And so this lease is up for renewal. It's a 2-year agreement, and I did not change any of the terms in here. We could contemplate adjusting their rent or lease rate. However, over the last few years, they've actually given up some office space to Nick Turner, and they share the kitchen space with all the bus drivers. I actually think they kind of enjoy chatting with the guys every day. But it's more of a shared space than you would think, given the fact that they're paying rent on it. So we appreciate them accommodating our guys too.
So,
Do they pay for like half the utilities?
They pay all, this says they pay all the utilities, no, we pay the utilities
It says we pay
up
the
to
utilities.
$2,700, and then they pay the balance after that. So I don't know, I can't say if that's half or not, Tristan, I don't know the answer to that.
That's a good question.
Their utilities are not that high.
It's the same as the clinic, it's not even
Yeah.
that amount.
Approaching it.
and I think the thought process behind that is that we would be heating it and lighting it, doing everything anyway. So, and our bus drivers use it as well, so it's kind of like a necessary adjustment, but by their presence, it goes beyond that $2,700 amount. Then at that point, if they're got the heat cranked up to 90 and they've got a
Well,
light
it's got a
LED,
sunroom on it, you know, it's getting that passive
that they
solar.
would have to put that extra. So, at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to renew the lease to Prickly Pear Cooperative for the Miller House.
So moved.
Motion from Marcia, do I have a second? Second from Tyrell. Questions, comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. And then the final item, as he groans.
Lucky Dan.
This board must make an appointment for our representation to that Prickly Pear Cooperative Board. Traditionally, that has been the duties that we have placed onto our superintendent. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to appoint our superintendent to serve on the Prickly Pear Cooperative Board.
So moved.
Motion from Tyrell, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Marcia. Questions, comments for the board?
Do you have any comments?
Questions or,
That's good work.
yeah,
They're a good group.
questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those saying no, motion carries, and that will adjourn this evening's meeting of East Helena Public Schools Board of Trustees. Our next scheduled meeting is scheduled for May 12th, right here at East Valley Middle School Library at 5:30, and that concludes our meeting.
I think they're right.
Another good service. Yeah. I'm sitting here waiting like, come on, ask me more.
My wife says all the time, every time you brush up against the wall.
Well, we never really set.
No, I was thinking about the whole time. I gotta wait and.
It doesn't say. Schedule,
All I can think about was like.
expect you back here in September, you're driving.
Across the house there. Sometimes occupation can be 15 years.
I would suggest, if you can make it, meetings, what I'd like to do is to,
So,